Thanks ever so much for such a wonderful welcome. It's my first time in Romania, and I love this city. It's so green, so beautiful. Everywhere I see, it's like such beautiful landscape. I want to start in my presentation from quoting one of my favorite role models of all times, David Attenborough. And he also talked very passionate about the city and its role in climate change. So he said, now, over half of us live in an urban environment. My home, too, is here in the city of London. Looking down this great metropolis, the ingenuity with which we continue to reshape the surface of our planet is very striking. It is also very sobering and reminds me of just how easy it is for us to lose our connection with the natural world. So there's a lot of things need to be done. And I feel cities can play a major role in that. So how do we do it? This is one of the latest research published in April this year by the Swiss Federal Institute of Technology in Lausanne. And they looking at all these literature reviews published so far around how can we create environmentally sustainable smart cities, and how different technologies all the way from AI, IoT, big data, etc., are converging to allow us to make it happen. But if you have a look, there are quite a wide range of areas where technology are forming to support our sustainable future. Anywhere from water resources, air pollution, environments, mobility, and how we engage citizens, etc. So it's a lot of hard work. So I don't know how you guys manage. I almost feel like it's like a Mission Impossible. So maybe Tom Cruise had a quite nice, Mission Impossible 7 released recently. Maybe for the next series, he should consider work with mayors and the municipal government worldwide to really address the climate change because it's so challenging and so complex. A little bit about me, as our wonderful host has already mentioned. You can see that I was made in China, reinvented in the UK through wonderful education. So I was very lucky to be educated at Loughborough University, whose media courses has been consistently ranked as #1 in the UK. So there I met a group of world-leading professors who are very much looking at how the new future media is going to come into shape. So that's where I was lucky to discover Second Life, and it's the world's first Metaverse platform back in 2006. So as you can see, in some countries, as a happy international student, you pay slightly more tuition fee than the home students. So I consider myself as a happy cash cow because we contribute about £30 billion a year to the British economy, very significant, a major export industry. So I thought, why not do something a little bit adventurous? So I went to my supervisor, and he said, why not try Second Life? Because that's going to be the next biggest thing. So that's how I started. And, but for any kind of technology, if you want to make it work, the technology itself is not good enough unless you find the user case. So the user case I found at that time is education. Because at the same time, when I was in Loughborough University, I think perhaps the second month I arrived in the university, I didn't manage to convince 1,000 UK students to vote for me as their first international development officer to join the student union, because I feel that the learning on textbooks is not enough. You need to really learn how to deal with people from all kinds of cultural backgrounds, really unite them for common causes. So that's what I did. And then I started a journey which basically assisting the newly appointed Vice Chancellor, Professor Shirley Pearce, to co-design the whole international strategy of the university. But our approach is a little bit different. As you know, lots of strategy is very much top-down all the way to the university, and then to the professors, and then to the students. We adopt a double approach, both top-down, all the way down, and I adopt bottom-up. So we were doing how we helping students understand their needs, and then we mobilize them to work closely with their professors, their departments, the university, to really drive the future of the student-centered like international strategies. So that's perhaps a little bit similar to a lot of things you are doing here, try to get citizens involved in the daily operation of the strategy. And we were very lucky because we really had a very effective way to get students excited about how the overall strategy is going to benefit them in the years to come. So they get involved. Within 18 months, we initiated a strategy. We were recognized by 3 national awards in the UK as the best international student union of the year. And that was very thrilling. And unfortunately, at the same time, I was doing my full-time PhD, looking at how to use digital twins in the Metaverse to simulate and optimize for the construction, engineering, architectural projects, which is the foundation of smart cities. But that was a lot of fun as well. So later I was elected a political representative for about 5 years' time in the UK, representing 1 million international students, sitting on many different intergovernmental committees and did a lot of lobby work, including the immigration change, against the Home Secretary Theresa May at that time, and didn't manage to convince her to cancel up to 10 policies out of 40 proposed ones. So we were very lucky and had lots of fun. And then I was China director for about 7 years for QS World University Ranking, where we evaluate hundreds of the world's top universities, advising governments, universities on frontier technologies. So what shall we do looking forward for the whole cities when it comes to sustainable future? I think let's start from something. Can you hear me now? I think we should start from something really basic. If you have a look, everyone knows data is the new oil, but the new oil will really bring value when it is analyzed. So you can see here that worldwide, the data we are experiencing now, it has also an iceberg situation where only 12% of data across any organization on average is analyzed to provide value, where the rest, nearly 80% is not analyzed. They're sitting there, consume large space, and also it's not environmentally friendly when you try to put them cloud or edge, etc. So what can we do to really have much efficient data strategies for municipal governments when it comes to smart city is something we all need to address. And of course, we need to talk about AI because that's the buzzword now. And but again, it's nothing new. So if you have a look here, that the latest discussion about AI, it can trace back all the way to the 1950s. But during the process, it doesn't really achieve mass adoption. It has 2 major winters, where maybe the hype is a little bit too high, and so governments start to say, we spend so much money on AI, is that really worth it? So I remember the first winter taking place in the 1970s, and one of the reports was led by a professor. He was commissioned by the parliament in the UK to looking at how effective the investment into AI has really produced tangible outcome, and his conclusion is not yet. And that caused UK government to pull away from AI funding for nearly 7 years. And it happens again in the 1990s. And now, of course, we all see that there is a major breakthrough with generative AI. So what's really interesting at this moment is if you're having a look of CHR's latest report, they start to looking at how generative AI is using text to code images, videos, etc., and especially 3D objects to provide more immersive experience at scale, which is quite significant. And we see that's going to happen, perhaps it's going to reach peak to about 2030. So that's very exciting. And I remember yesterday I was sitting next to Alan, our mayors here, and we were talking about actually, he saw a video recently. The American President, Joe Biden, was speaking fluent Romanian and sent greetings to the Romanian people. So, which is quite interesting things. And I was wondering, actually, we all know how, busy our mayors are. So maybe in the future, we can use generative AI to have your virtual applica to speak to your citizens on a daily basis, because I noticed for every single city, they will have a mailbox which goes directly to the mayors. But in the future, why not use generative AI to create maybe the virtual Alan? Is Alan here somewhere? Hello, Alan. So maybe you can try to use generative AI to create the virtual Alan and speak to every single citizens in. I think that will make you very popular and easily nail the next election, which are going to take place next year. And I guess that's going to apply to many other mayors who are attending here today. So why not? So that can be quite interesting. This is another very significant piece of research. Is basically published by Nature. And what they have been looking at is, as you can see, they reviewed all the different global experts who have been researching on how AI can impact on UN Sustainable Development Goals in all the previous decades. And their research found out that actually AI has the potential to bring more positive impacts than threats. So out of all the 100 plus targets, about 79% of the UN SDG target can be enhanced through AI, while the rest, I would say 20%, will cause issues, especially on ethics, on data securities, etc. So that needs to be addressed through regulatory framework, which a lot of government has already been looking into that. So I think the picture is still quite positive. BCG proposed a very interesting framework to use AI to combat climate change, all the way from mitigation to adoption to resilience and fundamentals. I will suggest you have a look. It's very useful. Another key areas I think a lot of cities have already started to use is actually on digital twin. I want to talk about it in different facets here. A lot of digital twins is taking place on the city level, but an emerging trend is start to looking at how digital twin can be used for citizens. So this chart is produced by Tata Consulting, basically looking at how digital twin can create a more direct impact for the citizens' well-being and health on a daily basis. They can use a different twin technology to see how they should live a more responsible, ethical life that will bring benefits to their own health and look much younger, or maybe become more environmentally friendly. So I think for any mayors who are working really hard to try to suggest their citizens to use less cars or eat less beef or delicious food, maybe that can be a solution forward, because I think when you try to let your citizen clearly see how their daily action, especially consumption, whether it's clothes, food, public transport, is going to have an impact on their own well-being health as well as their cities, that will help to bridge the strategy from the top all the way to the bottom. And of course, there has been lots of research looking at how digital twin is actually really bring tangible carbon emission reduction at scale, especially in the built environments. So this piece of research is conducted by EY, and according to their latest finding, actually up to 50% of carbon footprint in the built environment can be reduced as a result of adopting digital twin related technology. Quite significant. And if we want to look at much bigger scale, if we use digital twin to simulate the whole Earth, and there are significant benefits. So there are two major projects going on at this moment. One is by the European Commission. So they put in a large amount of funding to looking at how digital twin can simulate the climate change in different parts of Europe and allows mitigation to come in place effectively. Another area is led by the private sector, NVIDIA. So they have Earth-2 now, using super powerful, high-performance computing to actually generate the image of how different parts of, especially rising sea levels, how should we do that, in lots of different parts of cities, and how we can all get scientists, governments, business involved to try to develop different scenarios to tackle climate change. So I think digital twin is another area which has proved very effective in fighting climate change. And of course, all the above things we're talking about is requiring huge amounts of data. I remember the leader from Intel gave a very interesting speech 2 years ago. And he was saying that to unleash the full potential of the metaverse, we need at least another 1,000 times computing power. And we don't have that power yet. So how can we solve it? Of course, there are lots of different high-performance computing like technology being developed. And perhaps the one which gets the most attention is quantum computing. As you can see, last year's Nobel Prize winner goes to 3 scientists who are working on quantum entanglement, which are a very important part of quantum technology. And the very interesting thing is I remember in 2019, Google made a major announcement basically saying they have achieved quantum supremacy. What that means is basically they have developed a quantum computer which can run, I think, more than 100 million times faster than any existing computer we have got. So that's like a really, really amazing. Imagine how that's going to transform all the many different things we're talking about: AI, digital twins, Metaverse, and IoT. That's going to be very, very powerful. But the issue is, how can we really utilize that for climate change? So actually, one of the most prominent areas quantum technology can really support is for SDG 7, affordable and clean energy. That's going to be a massive boost in that area. Let's also talking about environment impact of the different technology we'll talk about. This one is really interesting. It was conducted by the University of Massachusetts. So AI is such a beautiful thing we can utilize to support our environments and our future society. But at the same time, training AI is not that environmentally friendly. So it can produce the carbon dioxide 5 times more than the lifetime emission of the American car, or 300 round-trip flights between San Francisco and New York. So we need to make a balance. And how do we do it? There are already some really interesting solutions here. On the energy side, perhaps some of the most major scientific breakthrough since last year is nuclear fusion. And recently, you probably see the news that the Lawrence State Lab in the American has again conducted a second experiment to confirm this area can work. But the issue is, this is news published by FT yesterday. So they're looking at how all the many different countries around the world, Canada, China, US, EU, Germany, etc., they're all putting huge amount of investments in nuclear fusion to really generate the clean energies we want for the future. But maybe it will take a little bit time for really supply that to national grids in different parts of the world. And the estimate at will be 2030. So we need a little bit more time to get that done. So maybe in between, hydrogen and other clean energy can help to address the mobilities and energy situation in our cities. But the future is very bright indeed. This is quite fascinating. I think it's a little bit blue sky thinking, almost like science fiction. So recently, Nature published an academic article talking about some major breakthrough led by Microsoft and a group of universities in China, US, EU, etc. So basically, they start to looking at how to use synthetic DNA to store data. And they actually have done that multiple times successfully. So we can put the digital data into the synthetic DNA and then extract it back. So let's imagine if we can use these technologies in the next 5-10 years, according to the leading scientists in this university. That can completely change the global landscape. We are not going to worry about any data center crisis anymore. This is going to be very, very exciting time ahead. Another thing which I find also quite fascinating is taking place both in the EU and the United States. So basically, the European Commission has put in a large number of fundings to looking at how we can actually put data center in the outer space, because we all know it's extremely cold there and there's no air, so it's perfect for data center, because data center creates so much energy. We always need to figure out how to ensure, it's keeping cool, and the space is perfect. And they are working with a group of companies and countries to develop solution on that. On the other side, in the United States, there are a company called Lone Star Data Holding. They recently complete a $5 million funding to actually try to send the world's first data center into the moon. That sounds a little bit too scientific, like far-reaching, but it's actually happening. They are planning to do it by end of this year. So that's another area we can really address all the many different, energy issues we're facing now. We're very delighted to working with Tampere municipal government to launch the world's first people-centered Metaverse strategy, Tampere Metaverse Vision 2040. And some of the things we develop is really looking at how you have efficient governance all the way from the municipal government to the national government to EU to the UN, looking at data, IoT, AI, and all the different components that a smart city development will involve. And as you can see, we need not only legal framework, we need IT framework to put everything together. But the most important thing is perhaps how we can ensure the well-being and happiness of people is at everything we are doing. So if we can, I think the challenge is a lot of time we find it's difficult to engage our citizens. It's because they might feel like whatever is decided at the municipal level or national level can be a little bit too far away from them. They don't really have the tools to get involved. So for example, I recently received a consultation from my borough in London, and they said we're planning to build some new high-rise in the next 5 years around Hampstead Heath area, which is a very beautiful area with lots of trees. So I was not terribly happy because I feel that could potentially really damage the natural beauty of such a pleasant and family-friendly, living areas. So how can I get involved to voice my concern? A lot of government use surveys or telephone interviews, etc. But we all know people are very busy and they don't really like this kind of cold interaction. But imagine we can simulate all of those in the metaverse, and then they can come in and maybe use mobile phone to submit their feedback directly. And then you can see how all the many, hundreds or thousands or millions of data coming together in 3D visualization to allow the citizen to see their joint decision can actually be visualized and have a major impact, presented well to the mayor or to the national government. That will be tremendously powerful because a lot of time people want to get involved, but they don't have the tool. So if we can create the tool, whether it's AI or IoT, Metaverse, digital twins, etc., they can start to contribute and they can feel that their voice, definitely can make a difference. I give you another example which I feel really, really passionate. A lot of people think the climate change really lies on the responsibilities of big corporations, big governments. They can't really play a part. Imagine we can figure out a way, maybe use digital twins to allow every single citizen to monitor their daily consumption. And if each of us try to reduce our carbon footprint by 20% every day, and how that's going to be visualized in 3D, both in their own mobile phones or in the central data warehouse of the city, of the national government, and how that's going to impact on the city's temperature, all the country's temperature in the years to come, even by 0.5%, let's say, in the next 5 years. That's great achievement. They feel that they can be part of it. They can really make a difference. But that's missing at this moment. So maybe that's something we can start to think, how we can use such a wide range of tools to allow our citizens to engage in a way they understand, not just beautiful, like policy papers. Maybe it can be a gamified experience. They can play, they can win a prize. Maybe that can be linked to their own personal tax or corporation tax. If you are environmentally friendly enough, you can have a tax return, etc. I think there are lots of things we can play around that space. So that's really important. We need to have both a top-down and a bottom-up. And the bottom-up is about empowerment, to allow them to understand how everything works and what they contribute can really make an impact. And then we can have really happy people. Why not? Drop down. And all the mayors who are in today will get elected. Why not? So I'm currently leading on a major piece of work in the United Nations International Telecommunication Union's working group. So one is about sustainability, accessibility, and inclusion. Because we know 1/3 of the global population, about 3 billion of them, are still offline. So we can't just, celebrate all the many different advancements of technologies we talk about today and forget about them. So how can we do to address that? We are in the process of launching a major ITU survey, which are going to be distributed internationally, looking at how we can address the digital divide, diversity, inclusion in the digital space. So once that's distributed, I will really appreciate your support, getting your relevant expert filling that, and then we are going to use that survey's result to compile a technical report for setting up international standard about how Metaverse can be really utilized for the benefits of all people. Another area I'm leading on at this moment is as a co-chairman for the ITU task group on Cityverse. So we would love to work with mayors, governments worldwide to looking at how cities worldwide can use a whole range of technologies within the Metaverse environment to develop a sustainable, inclusive, and prosperous city of the future. So we have the working group set up. My co-chairman is the lady who is leading the EU funding for Cityverse, which is going on at this moment. Some of you know it's a lot of money they are trying to calling for, and the deadline is November this year. So if you are interested, please do get involved, because we need to get it right. I don't know about you. I feel like every places I visited in summer now is getting so hot. I feel like I'm barbecued. Everywhere I go, I can't escape. It's terrifying. Although I'm a big fan of Chinese food, especially like steamed dumplings, I don't want to be the steamed dumplings in the bamboo case in the future. And I don't think any of our children or grandchildren would like a future like that. So maybe sometimes we're coming together to do it. And I want to conclude my speech by, again, quoting David Attenborough, because I think he's doing such a wonderful job, and I love him a lot. He said, "If working apart, we are force powerful to destabilize our planet. Surely, working together, we are powerful enough to save it. In my lifetime, I have witnessed a terrible decline, but in yours, you could and should witness a wonderful victory. And let's do it together, and let's do it now." Thank you.